All right, so we're having an interview with Michael James, and I might just get you to introduce yourself and the nation that you belong to.
Sure. So I'm Michael James, Wiradjuri boy from Parks, New South Wales. Currently employed with the Department of Education as an Aboriginal Student Liaison Officer. So, yeah.
And have you got cultural connections across New South Wales, across country?
Yeah, just starting to believe, like, it's taken a long time. I don't know, my family were very close, as in we didn't sort of talk too much about different regions, different countries and that. So I'm just starting to slowly look into, my culture, basically. I'm still learning a lot about it. I've got 6 children of my own, so they're starting to ask questions. So I'm trying to grab aunts and uncles and nans while they're still with us, what are elders, and try to ask as many questions as I can. Mums are very close. I was reared by my grandmother. 1968 I was born, was reared in an old mud house on Billabong Creek. So, I'm very fortunate. I love to talk about that I actually was able to be, live in a mud house and no toilet, no hot water, that type of thing. And up until I was about 10, and then they knocked down the old mud house and we moved up to an old weatherboard place, so up on Billabong Creek again. And then we were lucky enough that we thought we were posh. We got our first house commission in 1985. I just finished year 10 and got my first flush toilet and hot running water, because we used to have a little old chip heater. You'd have to fill it up, so you only had baths 3 times a week if you were lucky. That type of thing. But yeah, Mum didn't talk about her culture very often. My dad was non-Indigenous, and so, as I said, I was reared by my grandparents. So yeah, still sort of want to know more. So yeah, can't really say what other nations I'm associated with. Yeah, but I'm sure that it's spread out. But at the moment, it's mostly Wiradjuri. Yeah.
Okay. You work in education.
Yes.
Are there any particular issues there that you've taken note of in relation to miscommunication or misunderstanding because of cultural difference?
Yeah, there is. Like, sometimes, the Education Act's cut and dry, and you do have your Aboriginal policy, you have your policies based around our people, but a lot of it has been written by white people, and basically you just got to get back to it does affect me in my job, and sometimes I just take a step back and do it as how an Aboriginal person should approach another Aboriginal person. So you forget the policy sometimes, and and you just work outside the box, and that's needed. So it's basically when a child comes onto for me to work with, it's basically for attendance. So what I'll do is I'll start at the grassroots. I'll go home and just see and get a background and meet the parents or nans and pops, or single mums or single dads and that. And that tends to be a lot that happens in our culture, our society. For some reason, I was the same. I was reared by my grandmother, so I find a lot of the kids I work with have been reared by nans and pops, and that happens with non-Indigenous too. I notice I've got a colleague that can work across the board with Indigenous or non-Indigenous, and the same children they're working with the non-Indigenous is the same thing. One single mums and single dads and or nans and pops. So I just take it back to get to know them, and introduce myself and get right down to what's affecting them, as in opposed to what's restricting their child to go to school, and we try to knit it out at the very bottom sort of thing, to help them. I'm not sure if that answers.
That's fine. Are there any particular cultural things that you think come up that are important to be aware of or understand?
Yeah, basically, like the Department of Education will say that they don't seem to take into effect that, like, if somebody dies, a member of our families die, that we have a different mourning system, mourning. Yeah, like we'll go away for long periods of time, and then the Education Act doesn't seem to take that into the fact that we need a lot more time. We've got a lot more relatives we've got to meet with, and we don't do it over the phone. We do it face to face, and we need to have a cuddle. We need to have a hug and a cry, or so be it, have a little cold drink together, or a cup of tea. So that's a lot of things that they don't seem to take into fact. They want it done the white man's way. That you should be back on time. A funeral only takes a couple of days. The body's back, but they don't take in the grieving. And they're slowly coming around. And that's where me, as an Aboriginal department worker, I can make the other our head office aware of that, and then I can write it in that, you know, they need more time to mourn and be with their family, and they'll be back, you know, within their time constraints. When, you know, you've got to be mindful it was our country for 50,000 years, you know, and you've only been here for X amount of hundreds. You can't make a civilization assimilate into a white man's culture in that time frame. It's, no matter how much you want us to, it's just beyond our, you know, our being in that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other examples like that?
Or
do you have any other examples?
Yeah, well, I mean, laws, I guess, you know, like we had our own traditional laws, you know. I'm not 100%, you know, I'm still learning my culture as well, so, but I mean, laws, and it must be so frustrating, you know, like, to be told, you know, and, you know, you're meant to change overnight, and two, I find it's hard to, like, when I work with young Koori boys and young Koori girls today, I think there's too much emphasis put on by elders. You know, it's a mixed up world. They're born in this new era, and they're getting told, you know, you've got to be more like our culture was thousands of years ago, and it must be so hard, you know, because they're being torn in two different directions. You know, they've got this new age technology and ways of living and what they're meant to be told, and it's so hard. You know, we put a lot of emphasis on that. You need to be more respectful. Everyone's got to be respectful, but you've got to be like the old traditional ways, and so, you know, hard, you know, getting told that you're not good enough to be a black fella or a black person today because you're not like someone from our last, you know, from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. It's really hard because you're never going to be that person again. You know, like, you can still have your cultural respects and your beliefs, but let's face it, we're changing. You know, we can't be what the past was, you know, so it's really hard.
A lot of stereotypes.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on the young kids to be all these things, but I think we've got to give a little bit, you know, with the, you know, it's changing. You know, like grandpops and nans will go, oh, bloody, all he sits in the room is plays on that bloody computer or the phone. I mean, that's society now. That's the young Koori boys' way. You know, if we were left 50,000, if we were left hundreds of years ago, you know, I'm sure advancements would have been made. You know, kids would have been, rather than kicking a straw ball around, kids might have come up with something else, but then the elders would have said, oh, that's not traditional, get rid of it. You know, there would have been always those sort of, you know, conflicts, I guess, but not as much as today, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any incidences that you've seen in relation to any other area of work, like health or law or social work, that where you've seen instances of cultural difference that have created conflict?
Yeah, in parks there at the moment, we've got a, like, I'm part of the Aboriginal Working Committee there. I'm the chairperson of the Working Committee, and, you know, we've got an alliance there with a new doctor surgery, basically, and, you know, the CTG, you know, we're trying to try to make it more Koori-friendly doctor surgery. And so our people can feel comfortable and go to. And one of the big things, when you go there, my wife was offended. She went, and she's a Wiradjuri lady. Basically, she went for just a routine, I think maybe like a headache. And basically, the doctor straight away just said, fill out this paperwork. We need blood work done. We need this done for chlamydia, all these sexual disease. And she was shocked. Like, and I'm thinking, it just felt like we were stereotyped, as in, okay, are you asking the non-Indigenous people to have all these routes? So I felt like an intervention, you know, like, oh, say, okay, you're Koori, we want, and that's how it is. And I said, my kids aren't going to have blood work done to see if they've got, may not be sexual disease, but my wife was offended by it. She said, no, I'm not getting none of that done. You know, I'm here for a routine cold, blah, 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 I've got a head cold. So that was, you know, that was a cultural big no-no, yeah, and I don't like that, yeah. And they're still asking it. My cousin Lionel will love it. He's a Aboriginal education worker at Parks Public, and he's got an alliance with the school has now. They've approached him, so he's been taking kids up for hearing tests and things like that. And he said the same thing, that they're wanting to have urine tests done on the kids and blah blah blah. And he just said, I can't do that. I'm only a teacher's aide, and I've brought the kids up here. The parents have signed for me to bring them up, but I can't give you authorisation for them to pee in a jar and take them. So that'll have to be the parents. I said, yeah, there's a lot of communication breakdown with these doctors. We've got to get this one right, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a little bit like the intervention, like just because you're Koori, we're just going to assume that your children are being sexually abused. Well, so we're going to put them on a table and we're going to do experiments with them and check them out and swabs and what have you. Imagine that happening any non-Indigenous person in Dubbo. If you said, oh, okay, your child's coming right now, we're going to do a sexual transmission, sexual check of your child to make sure they've never been interfered with, they've been upruled. But just because you're Koori, you must be, abusing your kids. Or if your children have got no shoes on, I mean, that's what the kids like to. I walk around with no shoes on to shopping malls all the time. It just feels comfy, and that's what I like. So why should I have to wear shoes? And that, yeah.
You've just sort of blown my mind. I can't believe that they're still doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're still doing it. Maybe it's their cultural breakdown because they're Middle Eastern doctors that have moved into parks, so maybe, I don't know. But we've had meetings with them because they're trying to get bigger and bigger, this surgery, and they asked us, they said, listen, we want to build a super, like an AMS, but not an AMS, but a medical centre, and we want to be culturally friendly. But I feel they held those meetings with us because they just basically wanted our sign-offs on this CTG, the form. They get a rebate back for this, like every time you sign to it, they get a kickback, maybe $1,500, I think it might be off memory, or a couple of $1,000 to have you as their client on their thing, and then as part of it is to fill out this paperwork and to have blood tests done, check for sexual disease and all this sort of stuff. But it's all meant to be in your best interest and your health. But I think, no, they shouldn't be doing tests like that on you and assuming you've got a sexual transmitted disease or something. And it was just, the wife took it as very rude. And as I said, Lionel took up from anywhere from kindergarten up to whatever, year 6, up there, and they said, oh, we need to get a urine sample of the kids. And Lionel said, no, I can't do that. No, you have to run that by the parents. So.
Yeah, very, very offensive, that.
Yeah, so that wasn't good.
No. So this video is going to be made for people who may come out as doctors or lawyers or teachers.
Yep.
Whatever. Are there any other examples that you want to maybe share?
A lot of schools are doing a lot of training these days. Like I'm part of the 8 Ways training. So in Dubbo here, Alan Hall runs that through here, and Yvonne Hill and a few of the other guys, and Marilyn. So they basically go around the schools and make sure that teachers have got an understanding of how to be culturally friendly in a classroom with Aboriginal students. And to be mindful of, like you said, like when someone passes away. And I remember back when I was a kid, I think it might have been the first time when, what's her name came in, NAIDOC celebrations. It might have been the 80s or something like that. I was in school there, and there wasn't too many of us Koori kids at Parkside at the time. And anyway, I walked in and the teacher said to me, what are you doing at school today? And I said, what do you mean? She said, isn't it a free Blackfellas Day today? You don't have to be here. And I went, I don't know. I just, I was only young. I was about 13 or 14. I said, I just come to school. Oh, no, Blackfellas don't have to come to school today. I went, oh, okay, well, I'm here. That's how I was treated by this teacher, And, okay. But, a lot of schools are, doing connecting the country as well. That's a big thing, where principals have got to do it as well. That's a priority. All selected staff and principals and head teachers, and then you get taken around to cultural, like sites in that particular town where you're teaching. So if it's Condo, you go to Miri or out to Willow Bend and things like that. So they're doing a lot. A lot of it does go over a lot of teachers' heads, I think, still. They don't feel, the Koori language, like speaking Koori language, Koori English or whatever they call it, where, the kids will mix Koori words with English words, and it's not accepted. They'll say, no, what are you talking about? You can't say that word. You've got to say, you keep your murras out of it. Oh, Mum smacked me in the hand, told me to keep my murras out. Well, what's murras? Oh, it's hand. Sorry. Oh, don't speak that. You can't do that. So, they're trying to educate teachers that, you can use not broken English, but you can use English and Koori words all mixed in. Because in parks, we've got big on Wiradjuri language. There's about 1,500 kids a week. That's all kids, non-Indigenous and Indigenous kids learn Wiradjuri in parks, So
why are you doing that?
Just to keep the language, try to revive it and keep it alive. Stan Grant and John, I apologise, I've forgotten his name, but they wrote the Wiradjuri dictionary, and so, parks is huge on it, trying to get the Wiradjuri language up and running just in every student, like whether they be Aboriginal or non-Indigenous. So,
And what's been the impact of that?
Training, which is through TAFE here, the girls in Dubbo here. They're pushing it at the moment in Forbes. I went across the other day to there's meant to have been about 10 or 12 people that were interested in doing the language. Forbes is big on it anyway, but they're not teaching it in the schools as big as Parks. And yeah, it's just, it's a culture. We don't want to lose it. So, it'll never get back to where people will speak it fluently and that, but at least it's not going to die. So, and you can walk up to any non-Indigenous kid for a fact in any of those schools and probably go, "What's your belong?" and they point to head, or I've forgotten the words. My little 4-year-old, when he was in the bathtub, I'm terrible with the language, but my wife would say, "Where's your belong?" and I think it's head, and then ask, "What's your eye?" and he'd say that, or "What's your murra?" and he'd hold his hand and he'd point to every body part and that. Yeah, so it was really good. So yeah. So it's great. Yeah.
Has that been a positive impact for the Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal kids?
Yeah, I think so. It's they take it home, and no doubt non-Indigenous kids will take it home and say, "Look what I learned today." And there may be still a few prude people in town. I think it's slowly. It's not, the racism's not there as much as it was. I don't see it because I can mask myself. Well, I not mask myself. But I can be taken either way because I've got a white background and Koori background, and a lot of people will see me and think, they'll start these conversations, black fellas get all this money, and what do you think about it? And I go, okay, yeah, and if you know you're not going to win an argument, I just look away and just say like that. But there's days when I know, and I'll just stand my ground. I just say, they think we get everything, and Jesus,
Tell me where I can go and line up.
Yeah, sort of thing. Yeah, they think you get all this free stuff, and I don't know where that comes from. Yeah.
If somebody was coming out to work with Aboriginal people or in the communities, what sort of advice would you give them?
To throw out the rule book of what they, and take people as you meet them. When you meet them, I like to read people. In my role, I adapt to how I'm talking to a person. So I don't come in with the plum in my mouth, or I don't go in swearing or doing this. If I meet someone, I'll read their body language and then I adjust to them. I try to accommodate. Say you don't put my role. You've got to make people feel open so they can have a chat and talk. So I get a feel for their demeanour and whatever, and I seem to adjust to it. And I can, if a kid doesn't want to look me in the eye, I'll spend most of the time looking at the ground myself, and then I find they're looking at me. And if I look back up, they look away. So I'll be the one that gives in and gives them a bit more power back. So I think that advice would be just to try to relate more with the people you're dealing with, and don't treat them, try to learn from them, I guess, I think there's a lot that we can offer non-Indigenous people if they want to talk to us, and just, don't stereotype us into this typical, what they have, you must be on drugs, you must be unemployed, or you stole that car because Koori people work hard, mate, as well, that sort of thing,
Okay. Is there any final sort of messages that you want to give?
I was watching the TV today, this morning, and something's come up about changing the flag again, but it's from a white man's perspective of the Union Jack. And I'm thinking, well, and they said, "Oh, we love the flag," but there was no reference. I said, wouldn't it be nice if that newsreader said, "Well, how about we consult with the Aboriginal people, the owners of the land, I reckon where that Union Jack is, can't that be our flag in there?" And that, we still have the stars. I mean, that was our stars for 50-odd thousand years as well, not just because they came in and some bloke used them to chart to get across somewhere. I mean, the Aboriginal people have been using them for eggs and emu eggs and hatching, and tells the whole story. So I'd like to see the Aboriginal flag in the corner where the Union Jack is. Take it off, and just have the Southern Cross in there. I think that'd be good. But no, the conversation was, Australians, this is who we are. This is who we are. We love the flag despite the Union Jack. But I'm thinking, we didn't even get a look in or talk about. So.
That would be a nice change, wouldn't it? You make it really Australian.
That's it.
Not just from a British perspective.
Well, are we even acknowledged in the Constitution still?
No.
No, we're not. No, that's what I mean. So, and we're talking 2014,
Yep.
and you know the rest of the world are appalled. You know, some of them big black leaders in America and Africa, they can't understand how we all think we're not too badly treated here, but when you look at these well-educated people over there, they're appalled at how Australians Aboriginal people are perceived and accounted in the Constitution. It's just crazy.
Yet
not counted in it.
Yet the story that comes through is that Aboriginal people are actually lucky and they're treated really well in this country.
Oh, yeah. You marched off rocks and hit on the head with sticks and had our children abused and violated and murdered and what have you. And just because it was the time, it was as if it doesn't make it right. You know, I know that may have been their civilization, it was never ours. You know, like we lived in the harm. You know, we may have had our conflicts with other tribes, but I mean, it wasn't based on because we just wanted to kill them because we could. And I have these arguments with a lot of people. You know, one particular guy. You know, you black mongrels get everything, and I said, you know, and I always, you know, something will come up, and he said, what would you used to be doing? You still be walking around, you know, with your laps doing nothing with the country. And I said, well, that's what, you know, what's your perception of nothing? I mean, what we were doing was living, you know, with the land and the culture that's life to us, and it was to everybody else. I said, your necessity to have advancements in life is based around war. The European side of it, everything in life is based around 1,000 different cultures, you know, or hundreds of cultures coming together because it's such small areas. I said, and then everything that you make in life was based around war and that, you know, and invading people, whereas the Aboriginal people lived harmonious and just got on with life. They didn't need to advance with weapons and things and technology as such, you know, because we didn't need for it. They never understand that, yeah. I say, take your diseases, your AIDS and your hepatitis and your sugar diabetes, take all that back with you then. I said, we didn't have none of that, mate. We're a pure race. We didn't have bloody herpes or stuff. Take it all back with you if you want it. Yeah, no, they hate that when I say that, yeah.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, there's a particular bloke me and him used to get into it all the time. He'd come across the counter where I worked and in a previous job, and I'd say, take your bloody AIDS and your hepatitis back to where you come from, and he hated it. You might have to edit that.